So for whatever reason, you found yourself in an argument against feminism. But here's the thing, your argument sucks.
How do you know that my arguments will suck? Have you seen previous videos of mine where I have argued against feminism and by your own opinion have determined that my arguments suck? Or can you gaze into the future and predicted that I made this video to rebuttal you and still by your own opinions determine that my arguments will suck? Hey everybody.
Let's start with the most basic shutdown against feminism. Feminism is sexist.
Yes, I would agree that feminism is sexist. Putting aside the fact that feminism itself as a whole actually promotes the belittlement of men by passing laws such as the yes means yes laws there to inhibit men within society and teaching young boys that their mere existence is somehow oppressive and predatory towards women. If we were to look at the individuals within feminism, we will find that they are very, very sexist towards men, almost to the point of man-hating sometimes. We've got individuals in feminism that use such language like masculinity so fragile or toxic masculinity, aim to shame any man who might be masculine or the masculine part of men. You have such individuals that post pictures of themselves with mugs with the words male tears written on them, there to actively promote the shaming of men who might be there to express their emotions or hardships, something that feminism has also been promoting, but it seems like they're also trying to shame men into doing that. So figure out that double standard. But not only that, feminism or individuals within feminism have actively called for the mass genocide of men with the hashtag #KillAllMen. Yeah. And feminism isn't just sexist towards men. It's the large majority of the sexist attitude goes towards men. But the thing is, feminism, in my opinion, is also sexist towards women because it actively promotes a victimhood narrative that all women are victims and that we should be kept in glass cabinets because we are nothing more than porcelain dolls that should never see the light of day. So yes, I would say that feminism is rather sexist.
You've come to this conclusion because you've been taught that sexism is basically the prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination on the basis of sex.
Well, that is the dictionary definition by Google. But that is it. Why?
Right. Before I even get into this, I just want to state that it's impossible for the oppressor to be the oppressed. That's the nature of oppression.
Really? Women are oppressed in the first world. If women were oppressed, I wouldn't be in this bedroom. I wouldn't have a roof over my head. If women were oppressed, you wouldn't have that roof over your head. But no, you continue to demonize men and say that they are the oppressors because your narrative dictates it so. You know what? Take this as my argument.
Being offended by something is not the same as being oppressed by something.
I very much agree with that statement. But you might want to tell the other feminists that, for example, the feminists kind of got butthurt over the Beachbody Ready advertisement because they cried that they were offended, therefore oppressed by the Beachbody Ready advert. Just a thought.
So bearing that in mind, quite simply, sexism is a form of oppression. I am not saying that men don't face negative stereotyping, and I am not saying that men don't face prejudice and oppression in society.
You are saying that though. When you said earlier in the video that the oppressor cannot be the oppressed, you were saying that men face no oppression whatsoever. Make up your damn mind.
However, only oppressed people experience all of that, as well as it being institutionalized and systemic.
Tell that to the hundreds of homeless men. Tell that to the men who are having to pay alimony and child support. You know why? Because the only legal form of sexism within Western countries is sexism against men.
Here's how your argument wouldn't have sucked. If you're discussing sexism within feminism, it should be about how some parts of feminism could actually be really problematic for trans people, as well as people who don't sign to any gender and people who are gender fluid.
Now you see, the men within feminism, the male feminists or your male allies, they aren't allowed to talk about how sexism can affect men. Oh, they're allowed to talk about sexism and how it affects women and how women can tackle sexism within Western societies, but they aren't allowed to talk about sexism against men. They're not even allowed to talk about male issues. For example, they're not allowed to talk about divorce law, how without a prenup, most of the property will go to the woman and the man will hardly get anything. They aren't allowed to talk about reproductive rights, how if a woman wants a child but the man doesn't, tough luck, the man is going to be saddled with a child for 18 years and will possibly have to pay child support to that child or to that woman. Or if the man wants a child but the woman doesn't, so on and so forth. They aren't allowed to talk about how young boys are actually failing in education when compared to girls. They aren't allowed to talk about prison rates, how there's a higher percentage of men convicted in Western societies compared to women, and how women actually get lighter sentences compared to men. You see, men aren't allowed to talk about that within feminism. Another thing I'd just like to say, stop spewing that non-binary and gender fluid shit into the real world and put it back into the Tumblr cesspool that it belongs, please. We don't need any more Tumblrisms.
A lot of mainstream feminism at the moment needs to work a lot harder on being more inclusive. But men can get raped too. I can't stand this argument. You have to be a certain level of horrible to pit victims against each other, whatever gender.
No, that's not what we're doing when we bring up that statement. What we might be alluding to is the lack of resources and funding that go into helping male victims of rape. We might be alluding to the legal bias, especially here in the UK, the difference between, the law pertaining to female rape and male rape is vastly different. We might also be alluding to the fact that men are usually considered to be the perpetrators and not the victims. We're not ignoring female victims of rape, but we want feminists to realise that there are also male victims of rape and to stop ignoring them.
Also, I find that people use this argument a lot when discussing rape culture and actually they don't quite know what the discussion is about. I want to handle this the right way because feminism supports all victims of rape.
Well, I can say with certainty that feminism has been ready to support women who have made false rape accusations towards men. For example, look at Emma Shulkowitz, aka Mattress Girl, who made a false rape claim against one of her classmates or one of her college mates. That was found out to be false. Another example is Jackie. Rolling Stones did an article about her saying that she was horribly raped at the UVA. And that turned out to be false, with the article being full of inaccuracies and falsalities. So, yes, I can readily say that feminism has been supporting women who spout false accusations of rape. But I can tell you one woman who the feminists didn't support, who was horribly raped. This woman had her home broken into and was horribly raped by 3 men. And the reason why feminists didn't support this woman was because she didn't follow the feminist narrative. Who is that woman, you might ask? Cythera. Cythera is a porn star, or was a porn star. Mercedes Carrera also did a video about Cythera, and I think the recent update is she's doing fine and well. But feminists didn't support Cythera. simply because Cythera didn't follow the feminist narrative. So no, your claim of feminism supporting all victims of rape is false.
But in the context of why your argument sucks, we are fully aware that men get raped too. We are not ignorant.
No, I think you've just proven that you don't care about male victims of rape. Honestly.
What we were actually discussing was rape culture, so not the act itself.
You do know that the term rape culture actually came from a documentary looking into the rape culture within male prisons, where in that small society, rape of men was normalised and allowed. Feminists just coined the term, twisted it to say, oh, it's everywhere.
Rape culture is when you ask victims what they were wearing.
Okay, I'll give you a scenario. What if police or investigators have obtained some security footage of you within the club, or you making your way home on the street before you were assaulted? They might want to know what clothing you were wearing so they can actively identify you easier if, say, the footage is grainy or the footage is, unusable for facial recognition. Just to point that out there. If they can identify you by your clothing, it makes you a lot easier to identify, but it also might allow them to see who the assailant was because they can see who's following you. Another reason why they might be wanting to know what clothing you were wearing that night is so that they can take that clothing away and send it to forensics, where they might be able to pick up trace evidence like DNA, maybe some skin epithelial, some hair, maybe semen or vaginal fluid, anything to help narrow down the identity of the assailant. That is a perfectly reasonable explanation and reason for asking what clothing you were wearing last night.
Were they flirting beforehand?
This question is what I would expect from a profiler, maybe. They're trying to find out the state of mind of the assailant. If they were flirting with you beforehand and you actively rejected them, that rejection might have actually triggered something within their mind that propelled them to go after you and assault you the way they did. They're only trying to find out the state of mind of the assailant.
Asking if they possibly had too much to drink.
This is a reasonable question to ask. If the alleged victim was to basically say that they were really drunk at the time, they don't really remember anything afterwards, they want to know the level of drunkenness that they were, how many drinks they'd had before the alleged crime took place. Because alcohol can inhibit memory, alcohol can inhibit actions, and with such things that feminists tout around saying that you can't consent if you're drunk, they want to know how drunk you might have been for you to not give consent. Were you drunk enough or were you sober enough to give consent, but you just kept on drinking and now you don't remember? Or were you so drunk that you couldn't give consent and therefore it is rape? It's a reasonable question to ask.
Whilst anyone can get raped, rape culture predominantly affects women.
Again, I point you to the documentary that actually pointed out the rape culture in male prisons. It's kind of ironic, really, when you think about it.
Men do not get asked if they were showing too much skin.
This could be because the UK legal system does not recognise male victims of rape as victims of rape.
Rape culture is currently ingrained in society. There are people that would never rape anybody, but sometimes their actions and sometimes their words might contribute towards rape culture.
Now you say that even if somebody who has never done anything to contribute to rape culture might actually contribute to rape culture with their words or actions, well, what if they don't know that they are contributing to rape culture? I mean, you change the rules or you update the rules and regulations on rape culture so often, I'm not surprised nobody can keep up. I mean, at first it was victim blaming and trivialising sexual assault, but then you added more stuff in there. You added, you can't question a woman's state of dress. You can't even question what she might have been wearing on that night, like you pointed out. Then it moved on to slut-shaming. Now it's moved on to jokes. Seriously, we can't tell jokes anymore. I mean, I'm still waiting for the guideline that reads something like this. When masturbating, women cannot use dildos or vibrators that are shaped like a male's penis. This is because the male penis is a sign of male power over women. And by penetrating the vibrator or dildo into a woman is a sign of male power and dominance over that woman. This then represents rape culture. Shit, I've just given you an idea. Don't use it!
Here's how your argument wouldn't suck. Every single rape prevention tip is geared towards people being in charge of not getting raped, not teaching rapists not to rape.
We teach boys and girls not to rape through teachers, through parenting, and now through TV infomercials. Because feminists like you shove it down our throats. But we also teach children that murder is wrong. We teach that as parents and as teachers, that we teach that murder is wrong, yet what is still happening within the world? Murder happens. Murder happens because sometimes it's just a spur of the moment, sometimes it's a psychological need, or sometimes it's pre-planned. Murder happens. No matter how much we teach something, it will happen. The thing is, with rape or with being attacked, if you were to take a self-defense class or have something like mace, like pepper spray, like a knife, like having keys between your fingers, anything that can allow you to defend yourself will lower the risk of you being attacked. It is up to the individual at the end of the day to defend themselves. And you can't rely on society and the government or the people around you all the time. So it's not just as simple as saying, you know, little Jimmy, you can't rape women because it's bad.
So there's the big problem. The other problem in that is that most of these tips are aimed at women. With colour changing nail varnish, for example, there needs to be more done to prevent rape for everybody, such as those glasses that change colour when they detect a substance. That way everyone can be safe.
You really have to wonder why rape prevention kits are aimed at women. With feminist bullshit lies, like saying that 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 women will get raped on college campuses, therefore heightening the fear level in women, thinking that they as well might get raped one day. I wonder why society will actually take precautions to actually help women and inventing these kits like colour changing nail varnish. Could it be something to do with feminist bullshit statistics like that?
That's just my opinion.
This could be a typo, but that's not how you spell opinion.
Before any argument, you're going to have to show that you know what you're talking about before your opinion is valid. I can tell you that I think socks have emotions. That's just my opinion. It doesn't make it true.
I agree. Just because you hold an opinion on something doesn't mean that that opinion is true. But you've got to remember that opinions are formed from somewhere. Whether they have done research on it, or whether they have just heard it from word of mouth, or they have certain experience of it. For example, to counteract your opinion on the socks having emotions, I believe socks are Time Lords, and every time they go into the washing machine, that is their TARDIS. Because every time you put socks into the washing machine, you know they're there. When you take the laundry out of the washing machine, the socks have vanished. And then when you're not looking for them, months later they turn up. So I believe socks are Time Lords from Gallifrey. It doesn't mean it's true.
Most of the time this has been used because you said your piece, somebody else has come back with personal experience or references, or anything really, and because your argument doesn't extend past that's that, then you swiftly state that that is your made up opinion. Instead of saying that's just your opinion, try saying, I thought of this, but I'm not going to do any research on this, because I feel like I am right.
That statement right there will haunt you, because that is how to sum up your entire video.
Please do your research, because without it, no one has a leg to stand on. I am so sick hearing about feminism. Shocker, so are we! Please help us not have to talk about this all the time. Well, I'm a woman and I don't find that offensive. This is quite a hefty topic about internalized misogyny, and that is a whole other video. Your argument sucks because you do not speak on behalf of all women. Neither do I. Neither does anybody. Except maybe Beyonce.
Well then, as a woman who doesn't get offended by what feminism seems to get offended by nowadays, I have a lot of internalized misogyny. God, I must hate myself. But I have never claimed to speak on the behalf of all women. I've always said that I speak for myself as an individual. If somebody agrees with me on not being offended, great, but I know that that's their own opinion. Just because there's somebody who agrees with me doesn't mean, oh, all women must not be offended by this. But that's not what feminism has claimed. Feminism has claimed that it does speak for all women, with such hashtags like yes all women and such signs saying that all women don't like being catcalled. I think it's clear that feminism claims to speak for all women, when clearly it doesn't.
When you say this, you're choosing to ignore the negative ramifications that this particular thing might have on other women. You may even be overlooking the negative ramifications this could have on you. Either way, it's a really selfish argument. I can't tell you how to feel about things, that's up to you, but don't throw everyone else under the bus in the process.
Just a thought. Before you accuse women who don't find certain things offensive that feminism has deemed offensive that day of internalized misogyny, why not actually talk to these women and see why they don't find certain things offensive? Gain their views and perspective on some things. Allow them to challenge your ideas. This is how opinions are held firm or opinions are changed. Allow the cycle of debate to happen, and you might actually gain something from that discourse.
Yeah, but what about men's rights? Men already have all the rights.
No, they do not, you ignorant, multicoloured haired bimbo. Men do not have all the rights. They certainly don't have all the rights when it comes to divorce law. They certainly don't have all the rights when it comes to genital integrity. They certainly do not have all the rights when it comes to reproductive rights. They don't have the same rights when it comes to national service. They don't have the same rights when it comes to prison sentencing. Men do not have all the rights. Women have more rights than men. Educate yourself.
I think people use this argument a lot because it's hard to see just how something affects your life until you don't have it. I'm middle class and white. I come from extreme privilege, and if it wasn't for people talking about it, I never would have thought about it. Because when you're privileged, you don't have to think about it.
You know, maybe it's feminists that don't understand how much privilege women actually have.
Also, men's rights movements that are around now don't even care about men. That's what really pisses me off. Being fair, any movement that sets out to help people is a good thing, right? The problem is the men's rights movements do not support male victims of rape, they do not support male domestic abuse victims, they don't support trans men.
I would love for you to walk up to such people like Paul Elam, Dean Esme, Alison Tiemann, and Karen Strong, and say those exact words to their faces. Because you might get a serious slap of education in your face just for saying those words. Because you are seriously suggesting that the men's rights movement and other associations like CAFE do not care about men and do not care about the things that you have listed off. That just shows how ignorant and stupid you are. Seriously, educate yourself.
Do you know who do support them? Feminists!
Oh yes, feminists showed great support during this event.
We're not super interested in talking to you, first of all, but basically we're here to shut down an event that is promoting the patriarchy.
You're doing it really well. Good job.
Very frustrated. I was studying all today, and I took time out of my studies to come here.
Would you like to ask him why he's here?
I'm not sufficiently convinced that I'll receive an answer that isn't what I've presented.
Two of my friends committed suicide, and I want the peace of understanding why that happened.
Wow. When did this happen?
It happened about 2 years ago. It was one after the other like that.
Did you expect to get some addressing of suicide issue at the talk here?
Yes, I did.
So you believe it's hate speech, right?
It is hate speech.
I've never heard him before. I don't even know what he's talking. I've never heard of him before.
We invite you to educate
I just
yourself.
want, yeah. So I just wanted to listen to him. I just wanted to see who this guy is and what he's talking about. But now I can't get in.
You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You're fucking scum. You are fucking scum. Fucking rape apologist, incest supporting, woman hating, fucking scum.
Is there someone else I can wait? Does someone follow me?
Fucking scum. Yeah, just
No,
another.
I just want to listen to someone else's opinion. I'm not even on a side here. I just listen to as many people as I can.
You know what though? Why would you pay money to fucking support a fucking rape apologist if you weren't fucking one?
I've never heard him say anything that was.
Well, it's fucking scum.
Feminism is ruining movies. /series/comics. This argument gets rolled out every time something gets launched with women in it, basically.
Now that's not true. We don't automatically revile or hate any film, TV series or comic books that star women. For example, one of the highest grossing films last year was Frozen, whose lead was an animated woman. One of the most beloved TV series at the moment is Jessica Jones, starring a female lead. And you only need to look into Marvel and DC's character base to see who the most popular characters are besides Superman, Batman and Iron Man and Thor. You know, Wonder Woman for example, and She-Hulk for a Marvel example, but we don't automatically revile stuff just because they star women. What we mean when we bring up this argument is when a traditionally male character is suddenly turned into a female character for no apparent reason other than to please a feminist audience. Kinda like what they did to Thor.
Why is it totally fine to expect women to enjoy and relate to things that involve mainly men, but as soon as more than one woman comes on screen, we're taking over? Here's how your argument wouldn't suck. Just injecting female characters into a film or a TV series and not spending the time developing their characters or even writing them not only ruins the movie and the TV show, but also puts a massive hindrance in women in the industry, and it's crap.
Well, if you want more female characters, more strong, independent female characters that aren't compared to the weakest man, why not try your hand at writing? Get out of your gender studies course and get into a creative writing course, or just try your hand. I mean, if 50 Shades of Grey can sell like hotcakes, I don't see why nothing else can. Just try your hand at it and write what you know. There's nothing stopping you, so stop complaining and write, or produce. Put some effort into it.
That means I can hit girls, right? Don't hit anybody. Why do you want to hit people?
Well, I personally do believe that if a woman was to strike or injure a man, then that man has every right for self-defence, whether it is just to block her, hold her away from him, or strike her back. Seriously, it's called gender equality.
Is it like really hard to live restraining yourself from hitting people all day? You're using this argument as a quick way to put feminists in their place, to make them think that this isn't actually what they want. The other thing is that you're already hitting us. In the UK alone, 1.4 million women and 700,000 men are suffering from domestic abuse.
Personally, I'm pretty skeptical on those numbers. But just a question. How many of those thousands of men that you claim have access to male shelters where they can get advice on how to get out of abusive relationships, or just shelters in general for men? I'll tell you now, it's not many, if at all.
So we want you to stop hitting us. Not all men. If we're discussing something about men and it's not something that you have particularly done, then that's great. The reason why your argument sucks is because you have to understand that many men have done this. A majority even. It's always sucky to have to acknowledge that something that you're a part of has bad bits, but that's just life. So stop driving conversations back to you because it's not about you. This argument gets used a lot when women do things to protect themselves and are a bit defensive. As we mentioned earlier, rape is up to us to stop. And that's when they say, but not all men. Like, you may not be a rapist, but you've got to acknowledge why women do certain things to protect themselves. You can't take these actions personally because there is a much bigger picture than you.
Why do you assume that all men need to apologise for the acts of an individual or for the acts of a few? Just because an individual man might be a rapist doesn't mean that all men are rapists. Just because an individual man is a domestic abuser doesn't mean that all men are domestic abusers. Stop demanding an apology from all of men for the acts of a few.